Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us on DNQ Football. We are here to talk about one thing and one thing only, and I'm going to apologise in advance for my pronunciation. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
We're here to talk. I have been practicing all day, but that cold that I've got still lingering. We are here to talk about the Mahinda Rajapaksa Trophy. I didn't think that was too bad. I thought that sounded all right.
I don't think that's too bad. Do you want to hear my pronunciation?
Yeah, go for it.
Mahinda Rajapaksa Cup. I thought it was the cup.
You called it a cup. That's fair enough. Well, Wikipedia hasn't bothered with a pronunciation at all because if you want to
call it the four nation trophy in brackets Sri Lanka or something like that.
It's even worse. They call it the Four Nation Football Tournament Sri Lanka. So Wikipedia hasn't bothered, but we've tried. So I hope that you can at least appreciate that effort. The Rajapaksa family, very big in Sri Lanka, in the politics sphere. Of course, we're not going to dwell on that. We're just going to get straight into the football. That is who the tournament's named after, but you don't care about that. You don't care about political opinions. We don't care about that. We are here to talk strictly football. Now, this
100%
tournament, this 4-team tournament, which actually goes across 2 confederations, which I quite like. Features Sri Lanka, the Maldives, Bangladesh, and Africa's Seychelles, African island. But, still, it's actually not that far from, say, the Maldives. But still, passionate to have them involved. They're participating in what's called a friendly tournament. To a certain extent, there's nothing. It's not a FIFA-registered tournament. It's even smaller than the SAF Championships, which we've covered previously.
Yeah.
But similar to that, it takes place in a group stage. There's obviously 4 teams that compete. The top 2, after they've done a 1-fixture round robin, will then compete in a final. And there'll be a trophy involved. The whole tournament is being played in Colombo, the capital of Sri Lanka, at their racecourse stadium, which is about 40,000 capacity. So hopefully, with travel restrictions and things like that, I can't believe how well I'd pronounced Mahinda Rajapaksa. I was doing so well.
Nailing every bit of that. By the way, I even knew the 40k capacity, and I was stunned that you had that in your locker. So
we're only human.
100%. I thought we'll take that. We'll take that as a strong intro.
It was a good intro. But anyway, it'll be interesting. It'll be a football spectacle, and we're certainly looking forward to watching it. It's between the 8th and the 17th of this month of November. So I'm going to start with a slightly different question before we properly get into the football side of things. You a fan of these kind of tournaments as a whole?
I am a massive fan of these kind of tournaments. I feel, actually, from our point of view, we say that we are lovers of Minnow Nation football, and we are. I feel that it's only whilst we've really got into the weeds with stuff like this, doing DNQ, that we've kind of discovered the number of these type of tournaments that there are. These small invitational almost style tournaments, and I love them because I love being able to see how these Minnow Nations get on, how they perform, what players are doing well, who's standing out, who's improving. From a player perspective and also from a nation's point of view. And also, I love the fact that the tournaments are put on purely kind of with a purpose. The sole focus of it is from like a developmental point of view. So it's an opportunities for these nations to improve. They play sides that are of a certain similar standard to each other. And just kind of everything about these tournaments and what these tournaments represent is I really like it, mate. I really do like it. What about you?
Yeah, I can't agree more, really. Like you say, we love these kind of tournaments, these things like that, and I think that more and more across the last year or so have I started to fall in love with the Asian Football Confederation and the tournaments that it contains. I think that primarily, previously I focused on CONCACAF. There's so many passionate Caribbean nations that we know and love. The Nations League, arguably one of the best international tournaments that there are. But the Asian Confederation and all the subgroups and all these tournaments are just so passionate. This one I'm really looking forward to, because there's not, we'll get onto the teams in a minute, there's not necessarily like an India in this tournament, which will hopefully add to the competitive side. I love the addition of the Seychelles as well, and for me, you don't need the World Cup every 2 years. You need more things like this. This is where these sides will compete. I know we obviously spoke to Joshua. The interview was great last week. He's obviously seems to be a fan of the 2-year World Cup. Thinks it'll be more competitive, more options to qualify. For me, whilst I understand that point of view, I think more Nations League, more small tournaments like these that get these sides competing. Sri Lanka, they've had the SAF about a month ago. They've got this now. This is better than getting knocked out in the first round of World Cup qualifiers. Surely it is.
Yeah.
Surely it is.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, mate. Couldn't agree more. You'd think these squads are coming, the players are getting together more regularly, builds team cohesion, builds opportunities to, I don't know, play as a team, build tactics, get to know your players better, work closer with the coaches and managers, rather than coming together every 4 years, losing in the first round of qualifiers, then you're out and you're off again. You don't see the squad or the rest of the boys for 6-8 months after. I 100% agree, and it's great that we're doing this and talking more about these tournaments, and we'll continue to do so.
Are you going to kick us off then? We're talking about one of these 4 nations.
Yeah, I will.
Who are you going to start with?
Say again?
Who are you going to start with?
I'll start with Bangladesh. Actually, so as you mentioned, the 4 competing in this tournament: Bangladesh, Seychelles, super passionate edition, Sri Lanka, Maldives. It's a cool quartet. Bangladesh, for those that don't know, are currently ranked 187 in the FIFA rankings. Now, despite what is quite a lowly ranking, Bangladesh are actually going through a decent little spell for their international team, and they're going through, I wouldn't call it a resurgence, but some more positive form since 2018. In 2018, they were taken over by a manager, an English manager called Jamie Day, who took over in 2018, managed the team until 2021. He was in charge for 29 games with a 35% win record. Now, it sounds pretty poor for Bangladesh. That's insane. That's insanely,
very
insanely
good.
It's incredibly impressive for Bangladesh. Now, he moved on in 2021, and they're already actually on their second manager since his departure. A guy called Oscar Bruzon came in temporary charge for 4 games, and they've shifted over to a head coach called Mario Limos, who will lead the team for this tournament. I was going to try and pronounce the tournament name, but I thought, you know what, let's just call it this tournament. And it'll be interesting to see if kind of the Bangladesh football resurgence or the improving form in the Bangladesh national team continues now that they no longer have Jamie Day in charge. I saw an incredible stat about Bangladesh international football, and since 1972 they have had 49 head coaches or managers, so that's 49 gaffers in 40 years. And you go through and it's like,
wow,
4 games, 3 games, 1 game, 4 games, 4 games, and it's almost like they do one tournament next. Honestly, I don't really know the reasons as to why they churn through managers as they do, but you can now see Jamie Day in 29 games. He is probably their best ever manager. So that kind of, with his involvement in the setup, has sort of put Bangladesh in good stead. They've had a good few years, and they're in a decent position at the moment. Their 2022 World Cup qualification campaign ended in the second round at AFC. In the first round, they beat Laos 1-0 over 2 legs. In the second round, they came They had a really, really tough draw. Qatar, Oman, India, and Afghanistan. Lost 6, drew 2. Drew 1-1 with Afghanistan. Drew 1-1 with India. Good results. Also, their losses were far sort of lighter. They weren't as, the defeats weren't as heavy as predicted. They lost 5-0 to Qatar once, but apart from that, the scorelines were 1-0, 2-0. It was they were competing against nations that are far better than them. And as I said, that's all been part of this resurgence. They've most recently competed against 2 of the other 3 teams that are in this tournament, Sri Lanka and Maldives. You mentioned it earlier at the SAFF, or the SAF Championship, where they beat Sri Lanka and they lost to the Maldives in the group stage. They ended up coming 4th out of 5 in that tournament, Bangladesh, which you kind of think, oh, maybe they didn't do so well, but
it's close.
They were very close. They did well, as I said. They beat Sri Lanka, drew with India, and actually they were 2 minutes away from making the final. Now, we spoke about in our SAF final preview how Nepal made the final where they scored that late penalty. That was against Bangladesh. Had Nepal not got that penalty and not scored that penalty, Bangladesh would have been in the final. So fine margins. So it's a side that have definitely improved. Will that improvement, or will that improving trajectory continue in this tournament? We will wait and see. A couple of players to look out for: Mababur Rahman, Safil, and Reza up top. Captain Buyan and midfielder Rana will play. I'm going to caveat that now, though. It's difficult to judge these tournaments because they use them as opportunities to play other players and rotate squads, bring younger players in as well. But despite the fairly lowly ranked 187, I think Bangladesh are in a good position to leave an impression in this mini tournament. So that's one of the competitors. Who are you going to introduce for this tournament for those that don't know, mate?
Well, I'm going to kick us off with the Maldives. Is the team I'm going to cover off next. Now, to many people, certainly based in the United Kingdom, it's just a very nice holiday destination. But actually, in footballing terms, 156 in the world. That's not bad at all. That's impressive. Really, really not bad. They are, obviously, Bangladesh at 187 are the second highest ranked team in this tournament. The Maldives at 156 are the top ranked team in this tournament. They came 3rd in the SAFF, narrowly missing out, as did Bangladesh, on reaching the final. I think they'd have been disappointed with that. I think that, you know, the main story coming out of that tournament was, wow, what a tournament for Nepal, getting to their final. But really, I think the Maldives would have been furious with themselves. They only lost 2 games. They won the 2 games that they lost to the 2 finalists. And a different result against Nepal, same as Bangladesh, would have resulted in something very different. Of course, they were the previous holders of that tournament as well, from the last time it was played out in 2018. So they'd have been very disappointed. But they, similarly to Bangladesh, they had a very busy they've had a very busy international calendar, because they too got to round 2 of the World Cup qualifiers. And their group contained Syria, China, the Philippines themselves, and Guam. And I think you know that you're dealing with a slightly different beast when they finished that group on 7 points. They beat Guam comfortably both times, and they got a draw, 1-1 draw against the Philippines. Now, of course, they lost to China, and of course they lost to Syria, and they lost the other time to the Philippines. But still a pretty good showing, I think, for the Maldives in that group. No horrifically embarrassing scorelines in there, similarly with Bangladesh. The big difference, I think, going into this tournament, should the Maldives pick their strongest squad, and we'll wait and see, the big difference for me is Ali Ashfaq up front. We've spoken about the SAF Championships already. He's the all-time top scorer in that tournament, a tournament that has regularly involved Sunil Chetri as well. We sing the praises of Chetri all the time. Let's talk about Ali Ashfaq. He's got 53 international goals in 81 appearances for the Maldives. A really, really impressive
didn't realise it was that high. That's good.
Really impressive record. And if he is involved in this tournament, if they do go strong for this tournament, he will want to add goals. And for me, I'd be surprised if the Maldives go there with anything other than an urge to win this tournament. I think that will be the ambition. It'll be interesting, like you say, if they do pick a development squad, will that still be good enough to beat some of these teams? Perhaps it will. But I think if they go with their strongest squad, they have to be favourites for this tournament.
A big claim, but one I can't disagree with. And those Ali Ashfaq stats are mighty impressive. Is that DNQ spotlight worthy for this week?
I think that it is. I've looked around the tournament. I think it's worthy.
Yeah, I think so. I hope for the tournament's sake that Maldives play their strongest side, and the likes of Ashfaq are feature regularly across the 3 or the 4 games that they play if they make it to the final. The third of the 4 teams is the Seychelles, which I'll just touch on. The detailed knowledge around the Seychelles is slightly not as extensive as Bangladesh. There's far more limited stuff to go off for recent form and recent squads actually for the Seychelles. So they are, as you mentioned, and a real passionate thing about this tournament is it's almost a kind of an confederational interconfederational tournament, in the sense that Seychelles are the only side in this tournament that aren't in the AFC. They're part of the CAF, the African Football Federation. Currently ranked just inside the top 200, 199 in the FIFA men's rankings, which that's in your lower lower tier. DNQ territory, shall we call
Big
it?
Time.
Minnow nations. Now, the Seychelles are going through a difficult period in their footballing history. They failed to get through the first round of World Cup qualification for the last 3 World Cups. So in 2010 they made it through to the second round. 2014, 18 and 22 they've both gone out in the first round. For 2022 World Cup qualifiers, they were handed a tough draw, a double-legger against Rwanda, and they were absolutely and they found it difficult, should we say, a 6-0 and a 4-0 defeat and a 10-0 aggregate loss over the 2 legs, and that was their World Cup journey over for 2022. Their most recent results in 2020, they competed in another sort of smaller friendly style cup that we've spoken about before, the Bangabandhu Cup, which I'm sure that we'll do a bit more on this channel as and when it resurfaces. Now, that, for those that don't know, and we'll cover this in more detail when we speak about that tournament, that's a 16 regional tournament, which is split into groups. You know what, actually I won't even go into that, but they played 3 games as part of their participation at that tournament. They lost to Burundi 3-1, they drew with Mauritius, not a bad result, and then they lost to Palestine 1-0. That was in 2020. In 2021, I could only find 2 fixtures that they've been involved in, which were 2 friendlies: a 7-1 defeat to Comoros and an 8-1 defeat to Burundi. So it's a tough couple of games for them. With regards to kind of players and who might play, who might not play, who might be involved, it's actually very, very difficult to call. So I was looking at their squads across 2020. For 2021 games, I couldn't find anything on any of the players that played. So it's anyone's guess to a certain extent. The players that always seem to play, the defender Benoit Maire will probably be involved at the back, and their highest ever international goal scorer, Gervais Wei Hive, which I think if you were to see the name spelt out, you'd know that from previous World Cup games. So he's the leading international scorer for the Seychelles, where he's got 6 goals in 36 games. He'll probably be involved, but he's 33. So again, if they position this tournament as let's try and blood some new youth players through, chances are he might not. I think that, though, for the Seychelles, just that snapshot, leading international scorer,
6.
Way Hive with 6 goals, compared to Ashfaq, for example, I think paints a decent picture as to where they are from kind of a footballing standpoint. I'm just really interested to see how they fare playing against teams from the AFC. Although I'm not expecting, and I really hope I'm proven wrong, I'm not expecting a hugely sort of impressive Seychelles performance in the tournament.
Yeah. I mean, I always knew that we were going to be able to find a lot more on the Asian teams than we were with Seychelles. Doesn't surprise me. I think that, one of the interesting things, and again, just touching on this whole 2-year World Cup thing, if the same structure remains, this doesn't benefit teams like the Seychelles. Not if they're going to get a draw like Rwanda and get knocked out after 2 games.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that these tournaments are really important. And obviously the last team that are going to be competing in this quartet are the hosts. Sri Lanka, of course, it's the Sri Lankan Prime Minister that this tournament is named after. And it's in their backyard in Colombo. So I think that they will go strong is probably the first thing that I'd say. I'd be surprised if Sri Lanka, with everything that's going on at the moment with like the AFC International Cups, there's a lot of under 23s and under 20s tournaments.
Yeah,
so it might actually be that's sort of that development side done, and hopefully sides like Sri Lanka will go strong for this. I think that this is a big opportunity against at least 2 of the 3 sides to show how far they've come. They're ranked 204 in the world at the moment, which is debatably harsh, but you do look at their recent results and they don't generally win games.
No.
It wasn't the worst SAF Championship by any stretch. They got some passionate results there. And they weren't beaten by big margins, which makes a big difference. But this now is a bit like, okay, can they go that one step further? The Seychelles and Bangladesh will be 2 sides that they will want to compete with, potentially beat, and anything can happen in a final if they get there. They've only got to win 2 games. The only downside is that they kick off the campaign against the Maldives.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a potentially tough start, especially if Bangladesh potentially get a comfy win against the Seychelles. That's going to be a difficult thing to overcome. But you look at their squad, players that have played abroad. Razik, of course, has played the majority of his career in Germany at varying levels. Hamilton and Dylan De Silva, of course, currently based in the United Kingdom. Add that into a pot with players like Sujan Pereira and Kavindu Ishan, players that have been part of that squad for a long time. Harsha Fernando, Duxon Puslas, players like that. They've got
Puslas Yoganthram, probably my favourite name.
Yeah, it's got to be up there. They've got a bit of a squad that's played a lot of these games. They're not all young. I mean, I know that Dylan is 19 and is certainly hailed as potentially the next big thing in Sri Lankan football. Of course, playing for Queen's Park Rangers, which is a huge achievement. International caps already. The only thing that slightly worries me is you look at Sri Lanka's all-time top scorer. It's Jaya Surya with 27. Obviously, he's not played for a little while. 27 goals for him. This whole squad, the highest scorer has got 2. This is their main squad from the last few years we're looking at. Some of their top scorers are already Hamilton and De Silva, who scored in the SAF. They both got a goal each. So, they only need to score 1 or 2 more and they'll be the highest scorer in the squad. So does that skew the picture or does it highlight? I'm not sure yet just how much better some of these UK-based or players based abroad are. It will be really interesting, but I think that Sri Lanka will look at this, games in Colombo, hopefully there'll be good crowds.
I would have thought so.
I think they'll be looking at this and thinking, let's at least give the fans something to cheer. Let's use this as an opportunity to show that we are now better than sides like the Seychelles. We can compete with Bangladesh, and anyone's guess what side the Maldives will pick, and hopefully, from a Sri Lanka point of view, that will play into their favour. But that's all 4 teams covered. I guess the big question, my friend, is if you had to pick a winner right here, right now, who would you go for and why?
Right here, right now. Prediction time indeed. And let's be fair. We've done this once on the channel before, predicting one sole game. I know the India-Nepal South Championship final. We absolutely nailed it. So I kind of feel that we need to show that wasn't a one-off with these predictions. So for
Should we pick two different teams so that we've covered half the bases?
Yeah, right. So how do you want to do? Do you want to do like the group stage? I mean, I can just summarise how I predict the whole tournament's going to go if you want.
Yeah.
So I think for the group stage, I think the Maldives will win the group. I think Bangladesh will come second. I think the Seychelles will finish fourth. Sri Lanka will come third. I don't know why I listed it 1, 2, 4, 3 then, but you get the gist.
Why not?
So Maldives and Bangladesh to go through to the final, and Maldives to win the final. Again, I'll put a little asterisk next to that. We don't know what squads these teams are coming in with. We don't know their approach and their attitude to the tournament. So just caveating that now early, but those would be my early tournament predictions, my friend. What about yourself?
Yeah, I don't disagree. That's what my head's telling me anyway.
What's your heart?
I might have to go with my heart.
Love it.
With my head, I'm saying the tournament is going to end up with a group stage that goes 9-6-3-0. I think that the Maldives will beat everyone. Bangladesh will beat Sri Lanka and Seychelles, and I think that Sri Lanka will beat the Seychelles to end on 3 points and have the group in the same order as you've just said it. And I think that Maldives would win a final against Bangladesh. My heart's telling me that if Sri Lanka start with a draw against the Maldives, then Sri Lanka could reach the final. And I think in a one-off game in Colombo at the racecourse stadium, packed out 40,000, I think Sri Lanka can win this.
I love it.
I would love Sri Lanka to win it, and the reason why is that they are the lowest ranked.
Yeah, sure.
And I think for them at 204 to show how far they've come, and to get through, really, the semi-final is, and I don't want to do the Seychelles a disservice here, but really the semi-final is Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. And I think the winner of that determines the final, because I don't see the Maldives having any real issues should they pick a strong squad. I think if the Maldives face Bangladesh in the final, they'll win. You've got to think that the thing that's kind of skewing my mind a bit is the SAF Championships, because we've just seen it. Bangladesh did beat the Sri Lankans 1-0, but Sri Lanka went down to 10 men. And you think, God, even if they draw that, it will be interesting. But I think that's sort of the point. Okay, the Maldives are strong favourites based on world rankings and history in these kind of tournaments, with Ali Ashfaq up top if he makes the squad. But the whole point of this is, you know what? We don't know, but it's going to be competitive. There's 3 match days, and then there's a final. It's over 10 days, and suddenly this international tournament's all wrapped up. And you know what? I absolutely love it, and I can't wait for it to kick off.
What are we doing during the tournament?
Well, firstly, I'm going to try and find as many streams to kind of watch this game as possible, to see what we can find. But secondly, the coverage that you can expect is, obviously, this is the tournament preview as a whole. We may do a match day 1 review to kind of summarise, okay, this was our prediction before the tournament. Has this been changed after match day 1? And then the other thing that you can expect is a cup final preview, the same with the SAF Championship, because there's only 3 match days. We're not going to do a preview and a review before every match day, because that's overkill. But we'll do one before the final, and this time, unlike the SAF Championships, we might do a review of the tournament as a whole, see how it plays out as well, see what we end up with. But that's the kind of coverage you can expect on D&Q Football. And of course, if you want to see that, there's only one thing to do, Ryan, and that's hit that subscribe button, my friend. Hit that subscribe button.
That was really nicely, smoothly segued into the subscribe call to action, my friend. Well done. You're practicing.
I am practicing. You've got to hit that subscribe button. You've got to follow what we do on the channel. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Twitch as well. But primarily, the main thing that we look at is, of course, those YouTube subs, which we absolutely love. So if you do watch this video, please do hit subscribe. And I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope you're looking forward to this tournament as a whole. If you're from any of the regions, if you happen to watch us on YouTube and you're from this part of the world, do get in touch. We had great response from the SAF Championship final and we loved it, and we'd love the same from this tournament as well.
100%. I'm looking forward to it, mate.
Me too. Me too. And that's all from us here today at D&Q Football. But of course, you will see us very soon back on the channel to talk all through this tournament, plus the other internationals. I will be doing a video on November internationals as well in the coming days, which you can see on the channel, as there's lots and lots going on. It's a busy Christmas period, and it's the perfect time to subscribe to D&Q Football to keep up to date with it all.
So good.
So good. That is all from us. Ryan, my friend, thank you for joining me, and I will speak to you very soon.
Will do, pal.
Thanks all.